Okay, so here's something new and a little light. I wanted to put a pause in between games of Infidel, like I did with the Musket and Pike series recently. Uh, I just want something to break things up. So what is this? This is Chrononauts. Eric Lai / Dr. Garfink covered this as a solo game and give a nice review of it that made me think maybe it's not as light as I initially feared. Maybe it's got something interesting in it. Most particularly the fact that there's this timeline that stretches. Yeah, I have it set up correctly. That stretches through, and as you change events, there's this rippling effect through the time line, and that really excited me. Most time games that I have don't cover that well. I think there's an interesting aspect to something like Time Agent, which I covered recently, and where you can break time, but it doesn't have that rippling throughout. What does is Yaquinto's Time War, but it doesn't really feel, it feels very generic. You're just moving time in direction pi or direction infinity, and you move everything above the particular time that many spaces. This one has a grounding in historical facts. It starts with the Lincoln assassination and goes up to Columbine High School. And things that we all know to some extent. And then there are events. Well, that's a paradox. These linchpin events can be switched over to failures or to the opposite. Now, some of these, let me see what. I know there's one. Okay, anyway, there's effects to what you do prior, and I wanted to kind of see how that plays out. It's definitely a flavor and a theme that I'm interested in, seeing that taking effect where you change an event and see what happens. Unfortunately, I think it's a little bit simpler than I was hoping for. I was kind of hoping there'd be more link between some of these, and you know, it's a card game. Okay, so each player, and I'm playing with 4 players, the game holds 6, has an ID, and we can secretly kind of look at these, which gives them their mission goal. In her case, it's going to be saving JFK. And this is what she has to do in order to succeed. A-bombs have to be dropped on Japan. Well, you know, that's the historical event. But she has 2 things she has to change. Vietnam Peace Accord signed in '68, which is not even on the card. So that's going to be some kind of patch for the paradox. She has to cause a paradox there for that card. And then cosmonauts orbit the moon in '69, which is again a ripple point. So in order to get that to not be that way, Sputnik or JFK have to be changed. Just interesting little connections between these, and that's one way she can win the game, by meeting all those objectives. From what I understand of the game, and it's not clear, the idea and mission are kept secret. So the other players do not know what your secret goals are. I like that. What else do you have? Well, you have a handful of cards, and these are your actions. So in her case, she has a Mona Lisa artifact, which might be important, might not. If it is important, it's important from here, the Museum of Lost Treasures. This is her special mission. This is a second way to win the game. Okay, what does she need? She needs these 3 artifacts and needs to have played them face up. Ancient Wisdom, Rongo Rongo tablets and Lost Ark of the Covenant. Okay. Well, this one doesn't matter to her, but maybe she wants to hold on to it because it may serve some purpose. Other cards that we have here. Well, a 1942 Nuremberg race laws repeal. What is that? It's a prime, which means what? Well, that means that this could be played as a patch if there's a paradox in 42. And it's not really useful otherwise. It can't be played and it can't exist if the 1936 Hitler opens the Olympics remains in place. Now this is the primary event which changes the final solution. So if the paradox doesn't exist even after the patch has been played, then there's problems. Okay. And what is this other one? Avert disaster. Flip one of the following. Okay, so any of these cards, the Titanic, Lusitania, or Hindenburg, can be canceled. And we have some, these are from other decks that I don't own. There's an early American deck, which I believe covers that. I'll probably be the first one. The second one may be a different deck. It may be... there's one that doesn't make sense to me, and then there's a Al Gore deck or something. I don't know. There's like 3 expansions to it, and then apparently there's a Back to the Future version of this, which is its own little game. Anyway, this is the hand that she has to play with. On her, there's one other way of winning that I haven't explained. So she has 2 things. This mission, which, yeah, I don't see anything to really work towards there. Those are cards I gotta draw if I'm getting them as far as I can tell. Her primary goals, well, what can we do to get the peace treaty? We have to get JFK alive, and cosmonauts orbit the moon. We have to get JFK alive, and those have to be patched, because something like this ruins the whole space-time continuum beyond it. You're trying to get to your home, and her home is in a timeline not where there's a paradox, but where cosmonauts orbited the moon. So she has to get these 2 changed and has to get patches in place for them. Now, that all sounds pretty unlikely. I mean, look, I don't have a lot of cards that can help here, right? Okay. But there's reasons that other people will patch. You get a free card draw if you patch something. Basically, the time agency says, "Oh, you did good." And if there's 13 paradoxes on the board, the game ends immediately and everything's destroyed. Okay. Now let's go back to why cards are important. If you have 10 cards in your hand, and I don't think they can be face up. So it's not counting ID and mission, so I guess they can be face up. You win the game. So there's 3 ways to win. One, well, 2 of them are based off these cards. One of them is collect a bunch of artifacts. One of them is affect the board. And the third one is, look, I just have so many cards that, you know, I done good. So that gives you a lot of different options. I think the lot of cards thing is sort of just in there in case it's going to force the game to end at some point or another. Okay, what else? So on the play of your turn, here are the different kinds of cards. Artifact, you can play face up. And the only reason to do that is to say, hey, look, I got one of these. Once you have all 3 of them, you can say, hey, look, I won. Gadgets. We didn't see any of these in her hand, but they're going to allow you to do stuff in the game. And I don't know how much stuff. We'll see as it happens. Actions. Well, that's like the 2 cards she has. The patch and the avert disaster. These are actions that she can take. And then time warps are apparently especially powerful actions. And we'll have to see what that means. Okay, and then they specify these. So I guess these are also, those weren't actions, those were inverters and patches. Aha. Okay. The rules aren't great. Anything laid out on one sheet bugs me usually, but whatever. Okay, 13th paradox. That's if you have 13 of them together. Two special things. 45 nexus. There's 3 different linchpins that can create the 45 nexus. So it's more likely to happen. These are also considered unstable. Okay, the patches for them are unstable, and they can be nullified. We're not sure what this all means, but we'll see if there's any particular different rules here. I noticed on the cards it says unstable patch. There's nothing in the rules about it. They don't even tell you whether you hide your cards in the rules, though. So, the other one's 1962, which can cause, not here, but the patch for it is World War III, and humanity's destroyed, and that's bad, but it's not like the 13 paradoxes. It doesn't destroy the whole continuum. It's a reasonable solution. It's just one that nobody's willing to accept. And what that means is everything after 62 no longer exists until that's been fixed. You can't do anything beyond that point. You can't go visit one of these other things and change it. Normally, paradoxes don't completely prevent things, I believe. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, I don't think that's the, I think, okay, anyway, there's some cards called memos, which allow you to kind of cancel another player's card, sort of an interrupt, and I think that's it. Alright, so I'm going to start this, like I said, a 4-player game, and I mean, we'll see what it ends up as and how much fun it is. Alright.